It is my privilege that we can continue our study about stewardship. It's a Bible study that we started with Luke 14, where it says in verse 33, "So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple." The requirements of an administrator, of a steward, is that he's managing someone else's property. Own property cannot be managed as a steward. And that is clear. The administrator cannot have personal property. This is what Jesus wanted to tell the people who came after him. And they came in great multitude. And he said, "Do you know why you come after me? There is nothing to be gained. You must be an administrator. If you want to be my disciple, you must acknowledge that you have nothing of your own. And all that you have now, you must give. Because then you will fulfill your duty, your call, your task as being an administrator." Then, of course, there must be an ability to perform the task. When Adam and Eve were created, they were adults. They were no children. You cannot give a task to be an administrator to a baby, because it has no ability to perform the task. You cannot give it to a handicapped person that cannot do certain things or think properly. It must be given to a sound, reasoning person that has the ability to perform the task. So God gave to Adam and Eve this task because he gave them and he made them with the perfect abilities to do it. And so, of course, now you are not only able to do it, but you are responsible to do it according to the owner's purpose. Because the owner wants, as we have seen, gain, and we must achieve that, and we must know how we can achieve that. We have learned last time that we have a body that starts in the cortex, is all put together in the brain, in the cortex of the brain, and then above that, there must be the spirit. It's an invisible entity. We don't know anything about the spirit and its material, but we know it must be there because this body functions by being there. We only know that the light is shining because there is current, electrical current. And our body works with electrical current, which is made by our spirit. And the spirit has many parts, and he has one that is conscious and one that is subconscious. And we have 5 senses that come to the spirit through the body. We have eyes and ears and a body and the nose and the tongue. And all these 5 senses bring information to the cortex, where at the cortex the spirit picks them up and he must put them somewhere. And he was made to put them in his subconsciousness in 3 categories: gain, indifference, and loss. So everything we see must be a gain. If it's not important for us, we don't look to it. And if it's a loss, we, of course, look away. What we hear must be a gain. It cannot be a loss. What we feel must feel good. If it's a feeling bad, it's a loss. So everything we smell must be a gain, and we have to avoid the loss. Everything we taste was made to have nice feelings, nice perceptions when we taste something that tastes good for our spirit. Everything comes to the cortex, and here the spirit picks them up, and he must put it into a thing. And he is made so that he puts everything just to the gain. Because that's how he was made. That's how we were made to take our decisions. Everything must be gain. That must be achieved. And we must achieve the gain. And we must avoid the loss. That's why we have a yes that makes the electrical current to our body. When we achieve the gain, we feel good, it smells good, and we must avoid the loss by saying no to it. And here is that what we need to understand about our decisions. Our decisions are just that yes and no according to what in our subconscious we see as a gain or as a loss. Now, we were made by God to just go for the gain. God made us for the beautiful things, to see beautiful things. You see, there is no pleasure in ugly thing to see. There's no pleasure for me as a doctor to see ugly wounds. There's no pleasure to see a body that is destroyed by cancer or by anything else. There is no nice thing to hear certain things or to feel the cold. Or yes, it's just we were made for the gain. Everything must be a pleasure for our eyes, it's not for the eyes, but through the eyes the spirit perceives it. To the ears he perceives the sound. Through the body he perceives the feeling. And to his nose he perceives the smell. And through his tongue he perceives the taste. But we were made for things that we like. And there is no choice what we like in the end, because I just take the smell. I like good smell. I'm very sensitive to bad smell. It's a great temptation for me sometimes when I have to go into a room and I have a patient who is lying in bed, and now in the winter time it's not so that he's blind, and obviously they don't open the windows enough or whatever happens. Sometimes you put enough good air, but still the smell stays in the room, and then you enter in, and even then it's you have to overcome yourself to still think it's a gain to help the patient by enduring that smell which you perceive as a loss. But since the gain to be for the patient is higher, you go in that room even though you don't like it, because the gain is higher, and you say yes to the higher gain and you don't see the loss. But business could not sell any expensive perfumes if there would not be a reason, a desire for a good smell. Yes, we are made for a good smell, not for a bad smell. We are made to taste the good things. That's why they are more expensive than and no one would buy them. No one would buy a few milliliters of a perfume if they would not value the good smell as a gain. So, to be made for a gain is nothing bad. To see a beautiful thing, to want it, and to take it is not evil. As long as it satisfies the need, and you just satisfy it by giving it away. You see the sentence there in our title stops. I see, I want, I take. Why not I give? At the end. Then the equation would be nice. But so it's negative. It says, okay, why do I want? But it's nothing bad to want it. We are made for the good. And even God made us, and Eden was a beautiful place where God put Adam and Eve. And even the place He prepares for us in heaven when He says, I will make a new heaven and new earth. Look at how it is described in Revelation 21 from 9. And there came unto me one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out from heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear and as crystal. And we see then the gates and all this, and we come to verse 18. And the building of the wall of it was a jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. How must that look? Transparent gold. And the building of the wall of it was a jasper, and the city was pure gold like unto clear glass. And the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth a topaz, the tenth a chrysoprasus, the 11th a hyacinth, the 12th a amethyst. So God is luxus, luxury. This is luxury. We were not made. And I bring this comparison because I travel a lot for the economy class. We were made for the first class. And everyone who travels and must sit in economy, and while he embarks or disembarks, but especially when he embarks, and he might pass through the business class to the business seats, and he might see that, and when I pass through, I say, I desire to sit here. It would fit my need perfectly. Of course, if I would go even a class 4 to the luxury class, to the first class, that would fit my need even best. Because we were made for that. That's why they can sell that one seat for $5,000 and then economy is only $500. Now I need to travel, so I sit in economy, but I would like, if it goes after my desire, then my desire is not economy. I would just sit and relax in that luxury seat and that nice pillow to sleep and just be happy because I was made for this. So we were made for the good. We were made for luxury. We were never made for something that is unvaluable or something ugly or something disgusting. That's why we must understand temptation can only come to us if we understand how we were made. God made us that the how is set by the Creator, that we know that again is when you take the means that God gives you to share it, to give it on, and not keep it, but give it. And as long as we would give on that what we took, it would never have a loss issue, would never have anything like that. But now comes the temptation, and we have in our lesson the temptation of Adam and Eve. But before I read that, I want to read a verse from James. We all know James. He is the writer of one of the almost last epistles of the New Testament. And here it's written from verse 13. It says, James 1:13, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. That means God has no needs. For him, gain and loss is not an issue because he has no needs. So he knows what gain and loss is. He created us in his image, but he cannot be tempted because he's totally independent. Only we can be tempted with what we need. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. But the lust is given from God. It's a need for luxury. It's no need for a smell that is ugly, or for a woman that is not beauty. For a man wants beautiful woman that God made. Just the one thing is, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust has conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Now, it's only then sin when that lust is a loss, but I perceive it as a gain. Only then it is sin. So let's look to the temptation of Adam and Eve. What was it that brought them to fall? And what is it? And how can we understand the temptation? Genesis 3 from verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God hath made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden of any one, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So, look what it says. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food. God made it nice and attractive. Every tree in the garden was attractive. So, there's nothing bad that the tree is attractive. It was good, but it was good for food. Now here comes the idea. It looks like it is good for food, but she never tasted it. And God said, it is not good. It will kill you when you eat it. It was pleasant to the eyes. A tree to be desired to make one wise. So there are many, many things that are there. There's the lust that she has. And Eve had the eyes and she saw it. She didn't hear much, but she felt it. She thought, why, it must be taste well. It looks like it is a great gain for me. But God has said to Eve not to eat of the tree. And if they would eat, they would die. So as long as their trust was in God, everything was perfect. They would say yes and no, and their life would be just perfect. But unfortunately, the devil comes. And Lucifer, disguised as a serpent, comes and says, Eve, you know, you were made for first class. You were made that your eyes should be opened. You were made to be like God. Now, would you like to stay in this knowledge? God knew for what He was made you. But look, He just made this tree that you should become wise. Not stay like this, so eat from it. Because God knows that you will achieve your goal when you eat from it. So he insinuates distrust in God. If you don't eat Eve, you die. And so this is where the problem arises. In whom shall she trust? Who is right? God or the serpent? Let's look a little bit closer. The story of sin and the falling of mankind. Here is Adam, the man. And here is God, who is righteousness, truth, freedom, security, peace, and so on. And God made Adam out of His breath of life and the dust which became spirit and body. And God made everything to function to His law. And here it is. It was given him to trust in God, to take from God what? Love, righteousness, freedom, truth, security, peace, well-being, knowledge, happiness, and so on. And it would be fulfilled as He gives it away. And then he would make the best electricity to his body. But of course, he made him dependent also of chemistry. So there were trees in that garden where they had to eat. They had to take in order to give their body the food. And if they would have continued in this, they would have fulfilled the purpose of creation, that is to reign, that is to be the administrator of all things. And then their life and the life of this earth and everything that God created would have remained eternally alive and would have grown infinitely. So this is how God made man. Now, when he put the tree of good of knowledge and evil in the garden, in the midst of it, he said, from this tree you don't eat. Because what it brings to you is not a knowledge that is good for you, but it's a lost knowledge. Because in the moment you eat of it, that is, if you desire to know that knowledge, because the tree has no knowledge in itself. It was just a means, a physical means for a spiritual temptation, so that it could be tangible. They should have something in front of their eyes. It should be easy to overcome. This tree brings you death if you eat it. It cannot make you wise, but it must look like this. Because we were made for wisdom and for knowledge. And so the devil could not come to Eve with something that is not her need. So he brings her something that is not her need as being her need. He sells her luxury, thinking it is luxury by what it is unluxury. He comes to Eve and says, do you know that you were made for a higher thing? This was his first temptation. He was not happy with what he was, created by God. And so he wanted to attain a higher state. And so he came up to be God. And that he deceived the angels. Many angels of heaven were deceived. Some turned back and some remained with him when the decisive decision came. And now he comes to Eve with the same thing. Because that's the only way to be tempted. You must want something that is a loss, but thinking it is a gain. So he comes to Eve and says, Eve, you were made to be God. Not just like a creature. You were made to know things that you don't know now. So do something out of you. You must be more than that. So he sells her a loss. You see it's black here. And righteousness for a gain red. He sells us unrighteousness as righteousness. He sells us a lie as the truth. He sells an imprisonment as freedom. He sells uncertainty as certainty. He sells us peace by giving us war. He sells us malaise or well-being by giving us malaise. He sells us knowledge by giving us ignorance. I want to read a quote that is a very, very nice quote. And since quotes, I am not such a great quote presenter because I think I have to put things in my own words. But this quote I would like to read because I cannot say it better. And I might lose a point of it. So this is in the book Ministry of Healing, page 427.2. Our first parents were led into sin through indulging a desire for knowledge that God has withheld from them. Why would God withhold knowledge from you? Why? Only because it is a loss for you if you know it. If not, God would never withhold anything from you. Because He never made you to withhold anything from you. He says in the parable of the two sons, the prodigal son, He says to the older son, says, my son, everything is mine is also yours. He withholds nothing, not even His throne. Jesus shares the throne with His disciples, with his people. He says, as I overcame and sat down on the throne that my Father prepared for me, you will sit down with the throne with me. There is nothing that God withheld which is for us as a gain. He only withheld that what for us is a loss. In seeking to gain this knowledge that God withheld from them, you know what was the knowledge? It was the knowledge of sin. Should they ever know this knowledge? This knowledge was not from God. This knowledge came from the serpent. This knowledge would and is a curse in itself, even just to know it. And so he wanted to spare them a knowledge that doesn't come from him, that comes from the serpent. Isn't that a good God? He spares you from something that kills you. Wouldn't you appreciate that? We would. But Adam and Eve, in seeking to gain this knowledge, they lost all that was worth possessing. If Adam and Eve had never touched the forbidden tree, God would have imparted to them knowledge. Knowledge upon which rested no curse of sin. This is a knowledge on which rests the curse of sin. A knowledge that would have brought them everlasting joy. All that they gained by listening to the tempter was an acquaintance with sin and its results. Is that not a loss? Oh, what a great loss. Let's just look around and see what a great loss brought the knowledge of something forbidden, something that is for the human spirit a loss. By their disobedience, humanity was estranged from God, and the earth was separated from heaven. Yes, because Adam was made the king of the earth, the only link between heaven and earth to sustain the whole circle of life on earth. Adam was the beginning of the circle, which took from God. And through Adam, the circle of this earth should have come back to God. But Adam separated, and by separation, the whole earth was separated from God. And if there would have not been the plan of salvation, Christ stepping instead of Adam, the world and every man would have been perished for long. The lesson is for us. The field into which Satan led our first parents is the same to which he is alluring men today. What is that knowledge that he allures man today to go into? He is flooding the world with pleasing fables. It doesn't matter if it's science or movies, it's fables. By every device at his command, he tempts men, and regard this, to speculate in regard to God. Where is the greatest danger in going off-road? In a speculation in regard of God. Thus he seeks to prevent them from obtaining that knowledge of God, which is salvation. So there is a knowledge about God, which is salvation, and there is a knowledge about God, which is death. Let's read from the beginning of the chapter, the first paragraph, so that we see the whole context. One of the greatest evils that attends the quest for knowledge, the investigations of science, is the disposition to exalt human reasoning above its true value and its proper sphere. So you exalt human reasoning above its true value and its proper sphere. We are limited. It has a proper sphere, human reasoning, but it has also an improper sphere. Where is that improper sphere? Many attempt to judge of the Creator and His works by their own imperfect knowledge of science. Many attempt to judge of the Creator and His works by their own imperfect knowledge of science. They end the war to determine, and look to this, it's a sentence that should lighten us up. They end the war to determine the nature and attributes and prerogatives of God and indulge in speculative theories concerning the Infinite One. If that is not true today, then I'm not watching it perfect, right. But I see this in Christianity, I see this in every religion. It's about God. You want to end the war to determine the nature, the attributes, and prerogatives of God and indulge in a speculative theories concerning the Infinite One. And in our church, or in a Christian church, it is about the person of God. We are so weak to understand what's going on or not. How can we ever explain God as a spirit? But some people, they think He's 3 persons, and others think He's only 2, and others think He's 5. And who knows? Because we don't understand even what is a person. For us, how can we understand that God can be omnipresent? Let's just look at the Spirit of God that talks to me and talks to you and talks to everyone like He's just with me and with you. Can you understand how that works? Can you know how that comes up? That one Spirit can billions of people as a entity to talk with everyone like He's only there for Him? Can you understand that? For me, it's ununderstandable. It goes beyond the sphere of my own judgment and my own reasoning. It goes beyond that sphere. That's why I think it's the most evil thing. Maybe not the most evil, but one of the most evil. She says here, one of the greatest evils that attends the quest for knowledge is that we want to knowledge something that is not discovered to us. But people go to the Bible and they bring it out of the Bible, the one that supports Trinity and those who are against Trinity and those who are for 2 or 3 or whoever it is. They attempt to know something that the Bible and God has never discovered to us. Never ever. But we make a theory out of it. And the Bible says, and the problem is that this knowledge just brings fights, separations. It does not bring to anyone nothing good. It's only loss because it comes from the devil. They endeavor to determine the nature and attributes and prerogatives of God and indulge in speculative theories concerning the Infinite One. We can never understand God in His nature, in His attributes, in His prerogatives, and in His infinity. We cannot. It goes beyond our sphere of reasoning. Our spirit is overworked by such a knowledge. So that's why she says here, those who engage in this line of study are treading upon forbidden ground. Their research will yield no valuable results and can be pursued only at the peril of the soul. But you see, these people who come with this speculative knowledge, they come and say they have it from the Bible. They find out some certain things. They search for things where they have no measurement for it. And they say, oh, but the Bible says, is it not the knowledge of God that we need? Is not that everlasting life that they know you? Yes. But what of you? We must know God's character. We must know how He discovered to us His being as a loving being, as righteousness, truth, freedom, and that's what he discovered. That we understand, because that's our need. But to go beyond that, it's no need for us. It brings us death. It makes us, instead of happy, it brings us grief and strife. That's why we have the strifes. In the Christian world, we strive for what? For a speculative knowledge. Yes, we speak about God. We want to know God. But just stay with that, which is a gain for you. That what God said, this knowledge will bring you joy everlasting. For me as a physician, that's such a great thing, to remain in the sphere of reasoning, because I have the body that I can see, I can measure. I have the law of nature. I can see and I can measure. And I can exclude and include by it what is the proper sphere, where my reasoning can go and how far. But if I don't have that, I go. And my patients always want to tempt me to go beyond those things. And I say, friends, patients, I don't go beyond. I want to stay with what I can measure, what God gave me as a measurement. And that's the law, that's the word. But since this word needs interpretation, I need to have the law of nature. I need to know how God made nature, so that I don't go beyond that which is revealed and which is a need that I have and is not an anti-need. You see, the devil sells us something that is an anti-need, like a need, so we need discernment for that. I hope we got the point. Adam and Eve had to take away, to mistrust God. They had to take not from him anymore. And so they trusted the serpent, and they took from the serpent, and they gave out, because you have to give what you take. You never can keep it for yourself. Then you just give. What did they give out of them after they ate? It was unrighteousness, it was lies. They were prisoners, they were uncertain, they had fear, they started to fight to each other, they were not feeling it, and they were ignorant, and they were grieving. Everything what was anti-need, they certainly now had and gave from them. We can read it all here. And so their life was not anymore possible to live. So when Adam and Eve sinned, they separated themselves from God, and they took from the serpent. They put their trust in him, and so they ate. When they trusted to the serpent's information and saw and came into doubt for God, then they took away their trust from God and put it on Satan, and then their decision was yes and no. And so you see, they are dark, they are black, they are not anymore correct. They ate, and it brought them death and the curse. So the temptation of Adam and Eve is most important for us to understand. And they were changed in their heart. Now they had to go for the gain, and gain is giving, and loss is not giving. But now they are changed in their identity and in what is a gain. Now they want to receive. Now when they not receive, they are embarrassed. Now they sit on the throne. They want receiving. They're not there to take and to give. They want to receive. They see and they want it. But for whom? For themselves. So let us come to see when that what is changed in us, when a gain is to receive, then resources and means becomes a goal. We know this from last times. Love, righteousness is that what God gave us to give it, so that the earth would be maintained and we would have acted by it. Food, water, and air was to sustain a life, that we might sustain the life of the animals and all of that. Our materials were given to us, our tools, that we should do this. Our relationships, Adam was given a wife for the purpose to do this, not for himself. It was not meant that that relationship should become a goal, a purpose. Children were there to be grown, that they should do the same thing. Appetite, passion, sexuality was given for joy, that they might fulfill their maintenance and their task with pleasure. Their life was given for them to give it away. But now, under the changed heart, men keep their relationships. They keep the things for them. They gather heaps of treasures. They hold tight to their spouse and to their children. They never let go. They go so far to make God who is the relationship to God, which is a means to make Him the goal of life. You see the greatest deception that I foresee coming onto this earth. The way the devil will tempt men to fall finally apart from God. That which will be seen as a great revelation of light, as a great discovery of religion, would be to make out of the relationship to God a purpose. The relationship to God and all relationships was never made as a purpose, just as a means to fulfill the purpose. God was there that they should be able to maintain the life on earth because they took it from God and gave it. They took the power, the means from God to give it. But now they make out of God their purpose. Then you're shachmat. Then you are dead ends. And this will be the revival that's coming. This will be the revival that people will just flow and say, we serve God, we worship God, and they might do it with dancing or not dancing. They might do it with piety or no piety. It doesn't matter how you do it. The method is not important. You can be as conservative or as liberal as you want. If you make out of God a purpose, you're wrong. You're deceived by the devil. And this also, these speculative theories that we have today about God, His prerogative, His nature, are just not what is the proper sphere of our mind. But we will make it out of it. And this is how the whole world will worship the devil. Because it will not see its temptation, because it looks good to have God as a purpose. But whenever you change that, what God made for a purpose, then you change the taking and the giving, you change and want to become instead of to give, to receive instead of to give, then you're in deception. And then you can never fulfill that for God was made you. Then the purpose is lost. Then for what God created you is lost. If we don't mix up the two things, we must know what's the means, we must know what's the source, and we must know what's the purpose. They are three different things. And if you don't know them, the law just shows them perfectly. So if we want to be a good administrator, a good steward, we must know at least two things. We must know who we are, and we must know our needs, so that we can separate that which comes like a need, what is an anti-need. The devil sells me the first class, but in the end I sit in the economy. Isn't that a bad thing? God sells me the first class, and I'm not happy with it. But I should. Adam and Eve were in the first class. Now the devil says, oh, there's a better class. And so he brought them into economy, not even economy. He brought them in the lowest class. He brought them to death. For that what they not made. So we must understand what is our need and how it must be fulfilled so that we can accomplish the purpose to be a steward. Do you want to be a good steward? I want. Do you want to be a good disciple? Then we must understand that profound statement, and it will accompany us to this study from Luke 14, verse 33. So likewise, whosoever he be of you, that forsaketh not all that he hath. That means he knows that he has nothing, so he can give it all. And he won't go into a knowledge which is not his. And he won't give away which is not that what he took from God. He cannot be my disciple. I want to be a disciple of Christ, a faithful one. I want to know the limits of my reasoning. I want to know my needs and how to fulfill them, so that the devil might not fool me by presenting me something that it looks like my need, but in the end, it's an anti-need. We must receive this discernment by God's grace, because He will always sell the evil as a good. He will always sell the truth, or He always sell the lie as a truth. He cannot otherwise. He will sell you economy or the lowest class as luxury. And if you buy it, you end up what you bought. May God give us His Spirit, that He may teach us right discernment, the right sphere of our reasoning, that we will never go beyond, that we won't go on forbidden ground, to not lose our souls and not be one day seen by God as good stewards that have done faithfully their administration work. Amen.